What?
My name is Deborah.
Deborah?
Hard.
Hi. What year are you?
2000.
Totally.
You in her year?
No. I was your secretary, maybe. Cute. Hello. Nice to see you. Curly hair. So cute. Very nice. It's hard. Well, in your case, we see it, sort of. The bulk.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is really very, very nice. Very, very fun. A lot of nachas in this room. From Shana
So many years,
alum.
also.
Yeah.
We don't usually get this.
Yeah. So, before Mrs. Carter started, Mrs. Carter doesn't need any introduction. Did you have? No, you didn't have Mrs. Carter as a teacher. No, but you'll see why she doesn't need much of an introduction. Mrs. Carter really could be standing here or could be sitting here because she came to Midrashat Tehillah as a student, and then was a madricha, and then was a secretary, and then a teacher, and a rakezet, and she teaches, and she gives a ziyazvad, and she makes a nate shabbaton, so she's really very, very much part of the Midrashat Tehillah, starting from this side of the desk to over here. So I wanted just to give out a thought question. If anyone has a memory of Midrashat Tehillah that they want to share, something that sticks with you. Okay, you ladies weren't so long ago, but it still was a while. It was a baby ago or a while ago. What? A memory that sticks out for you that's like a real Midrashat Tehillah moment. You don't have to say it now. If anyone has one now, you can share it. But if anyone wants to think about it, and at the end of the class, we'll go around, whoever wants to share an empty moment that really sticks in your mind, something that you've taken with you. How many years ago? How many? 20? 20 years ago?
Yeah, Lily, you were the year after me.
Wow. Well, Deborah, how many years ago?
I'm still doing math.
And as recent
like 15?
as...
Something like 15?
Sarah, how many years ago?
10 years ago?
10.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And as recent
Frado, also, you were a while ago. 8 years
8
ago.
Okay. Shoshana, how many? 9. Okay. And 2. 3. 3? You're all 3? Okay, great. So
Wait, so Javi, you're the same year as Racheli and Yael and...
Yeah.
Cute.
Is that where you always sat? Is anyone sitting in their seat?
Oh, that's cute.
So if anyone has an empty moment they want to share, you just raise your hand at some point and we'll share.
Racheli is ready to share. Do you want to do this at the end or the beginning?
Let's hear it.
I remember Mrs. Love, she started, I'm not sure if it was for anything specific, but she started, just a monthly from home. I think it was every Rosh Chodesh, whoever said it, comes up and says I can't remember, the thing after you finish the Sefer Tehillim. And I remember it was just she broke it down in such a, achievable way. And it just felt very empowering that, maybe 4 months consecutively, I said the full Sefer Tehillim, with a few other classmates, and it was really, really cool. And something that stuck with me. I don't do it consecutively, but sometimes I'll just finish at the end of the month, Sefer Tehillim, which is something that I got when I'm seeing that it stuck. It's really
Nice.
So you should tell that Mrs. Levy was beautiful.
Okay. There's a device of some sort here. Here. Rock too much for a device. Okay, so there's actually... where's John and I erase this? There's actually I noticed an interesting thing one time. There was a traffic light out. Have you ever seen this in a busy intersection? The traffic light is out. The humble red light is so powerful because as soon as it's not there, total mayhem takes over. Everyone does whatever they want. There's no like, oh, it was my turn, oh, it was your turn. By the way, if you ever want to learn how to drive in Israel, under every traffic light is a little sign. It's called a tamrur, I think. And it's supposed to tell you what the rules of traffic are if there's no traffic light. Did you know that? Neither did I. But turns out you're not alone because no one follows it anyway. I once got a parking ticket that I tried to fight with the parking guy because he got there when I was there. And I was like, I thought it said no driving on Shabbos. He's like, didn't you take your theory test? I was like, no, actually. I got here with enough time in the window that I don't have to know my theory test, which is a stupid law because now you won't know what those signs are when there's mayhem and there's no traffic lights, but you're not alone. And the entire intersection was everyone putting their car wherever they wanted to be, which turned out to be like the game Rush Hour on steroids. And it was really crazy. And it struck me, there's a pasuk in the Parshas Mishpatim. The concept of Parshas Mishpatim seems very dry to most people. It's all about Mishpatim, laws, civil laws. But if you don't have a system of civil law, it literally doesn't make any sense. Nothing works. So it's interesting. There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that most people don't know. I don't know why. But it's the verse there. And it goes like this. Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Al Shlosha Zarim Ha'olam. Finish it for me? No, that's a different one. Kayam Al Hadin Ve'al ha'emes Ve'al ha'shalom. It's Mishnah Yudches. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, on three things the world exists: on din, on justice, on truth, emes, and shalom, which is peace. On a basic level, on a civil law level, I think this is obvious. Theft means I want what you have, and I don't want to pay for it, so I'm just going to take it. And the opposite of theft would be justice. If somebody steals, they have to pay it back, or they have to pay double, whatever the law might be. That would be din. Without the concept of din, anybody would take anybody's anything. In fact, they have this in communist Russia very, very commonly. Everybody would steal from everybody. And I have this little obsession about reading about Russian Jews, so I have tons of books about them. And I don't know, until one book finally explained it, I never understood why everybody would say stealing was common practice in Russia. Until somebody explained that in communism, everything belongs to everyone. So today it's yours, tomorrow it's mine. You don't have to ask for it. It's all ours. So I could just take whatever I want, but they still call it stealing. Which means that there's an inherent automatic feeling of possession. That if something belongs to me, then it shouldn't be yours unless you ask for it or you steal it, or you pay for it, or you steal it. Justice should stop you from doing that. Emes. Lying. Obviously the opposite of emes was lying. Lying, everybody knows that lying does not work in relationships. I'm never probably going to run a seminary because I'm a little probably too justice. But I always tell Mrs. Kagan, in my book, if someone lies, they're out. You lie, you're out. You want wiggle room on this, you want wiggle room on that. You want wiggle room on this, you want wiggle room on that. Lying is out. It means you have no relationship. It means that the relationship was not important enough for you to override your feeling of, I'd rather get what I want here, I'd rather get out of this uncomfortable situation, let's just lie because of uncomfortable situations. Or, the expression, ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies. Right? It's because they don't want to be asked, they don't have to own up to anything, so they'll lie. But lying does not work in a relationship. It doesn't work in life. You can't have children who lie to you. You can't have husbands or wives who lie to each other. It just doesn't work. You have to have honesty. You have to have truth. In fact, when we rely on people's trust, we even call it the honor system. Right? Ever heard that expression, the honor system? When you rely on the truth that people are supposed to be telling you, it's an honor. Like I'm respecting you. I'm honoring you. It's a different level of relationship. The third thing is obviously fighting. In all relationships, it doesn't work if you're fighting. And so if you're trying to run a world, you will have to have some set of laws. In fact, this is one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. My sister once had a $1 bill that she hung up on her on her like corkboard, and it had a printed stamp, like a stamp. Someone had stamped on it. I'll never forget this. Attention, all mankind, in caps. Attention, all mankind. Learn and observe the 7 Noahide commandments. I was like, who are you? Who did this? It could have been anybody. It's a $1 bill. It circulates, right? Not a bad idea. If you want to circulate some propaganda, you should do it on money. In any case, she hung it up because I think she thought it was funny. Maybe once she got strapped for cash, she used it. But in any case, this is basic. This is basic. You can't have a society without any of these rules, and everybody, I think, agrees to that. But we could take it on a much deeper level, certainly as Jews. We're put into this world in order to be able to have a personal relationship with Hashem. In order to have a personal relationship with Hashem, you need to know who's in charge. You need to trust. If you've been in my classes recently, you know this is a running theme. If you've been in Judaism for a while, it's also a running theme. If your overarching goal is a relationship with Hashem, then you need to do it via knowing who's in charge. If Hashem is in charge, so then I serve Him. If I'm in charge, He really should serve me. This sounds funny, but we do this very often. I asked for something and Hashem didn't give it to me, so Hashem is wrong. Who's in charge there? Right? If I asked for something and Hashem didn't give it to me, maybe He's in charge and He said no. Maybe He's in charge and said, you have to change yourself a little bit more before you get this. Maybe you're not ready for it. Maybe this is not good for you. Right? But if He's wrong because He didn't give me something, so that means that I'm in charge, I set the standard of what I'm supposed to get, and Hashem is my cash machine. I put in my prayer card, and I take out my money. Right? And that obviously is not the right perspective in Judaism, although a lot of people make that mistake. If you're using this algorithm, then what we're trying to do here is realize what does din, emes, and shalom further you towards coming closer to Hashem. Din is the first one. Someone who's stealing, right, means that they do not trust that they are financially taken care of. If we know that Hashem is in charge, first of all, He gave us financial laws. So on the basic level of just avodas Hashem, I have to follow those laws. If I'm not following those laws, then I'm overriding Ratzon Hashem, and it means that I'm putting myself in the driver's seat instead of Hashem. That's one level. Another level is that I do not believe that I'm going to have enough money by the end of the month, whatever that enough amount is, right? And so I have to finagle. You know the word finagle? You should learn it. It's Yiddish. It means finagle, right? I have to finagle in order to be able to work it out, because otherwise it's not going to, I'm not going to get what I want. Bottom line, get what I want, right? But if I know that Hashem is the one who provides all my money, and we have like 3 million sources for that in Judaism, right? Give me a source. And Shanabek, give me a source. What? Oh, nice. Okay, good. Hazan, Hesa, Olam, Kula, B'tuvam, B'chaim, keep going. Right, give me another source. Waken those old and rusty memories from yesterday, guys. What's another source that Hashem provides all my money? Poseches Yodecha, very nice. What? What else? There's a Gemara that says, I'm so glad you guys don't learn Gemara. There's a Gemara that says that Hashem provides, Hashem sets your, thank you, thank you. Mizonosa shel Adam kitsuvim la me'rosh Hashanah v'ad Yom Kippur chutz me'asar Shabbos v'Yom Tov ubanav l'Talmud Torah. Right? Your budget is set year to year. What are you trying to do? Who are you fooling? Hashem is targeting you. Who are you fooling? Right? It just means that you're fooling yourself and thinking that you're in charge. But if you know that your point is relationship with Hashem, via knowing that He's in charge, you won't do that. You won't steal. Lying. Again, besides for the halacha, midbar sheker tirchak, you're not allowed to lie. Right? Why would you not lie if you're trying to realize that Hashem is in charge? Because you're only lying in order to be able to get out of a problem. Right? Or to finagle. Right? So if you're lying, it means that you're trying to get your way. And it doesn't work within the system. So you want to be in charge. What about fighting? We know that everything that comes to a person is a message for them from Hashem. If you've been in my classes in the past and you've seen the A to B chart, you know what I'm talking about. You remember the A to B chart? That was just a random nod? That was a random nod. She remembers it. Okay, what? Chanel remembers the A to B chart. 9 years ago. Yeah. There's I guess we could do it really fast, even though we don't have time for it, but we'll do it really fast, just because you know what I'm talking about, A to B. Got it? That's the A to B chart. But there's, person A is trying to hurt person B, and we know that person A actually does not have the ability to hurt person B. This is the rest of the A to B chart. It's not supposed to be a cross. A to B chart, this is really Hashem. Hashem is the one who decides if B will receive what he needs to receive, and A, if he tries to hurt B, Hashem will block him or let it through. A is fully responsible for the choice that he made and the action that he took according to Chovas Halavavos. I'm throwing out like a very intense year in 1.5 minutes. But A is fully responsible and he has to then do teshuva or pay damages accordingly based on if he actually panned out in the civil world or he only did it in the spiritual world. He's fully responsible as if he killed someone, if he tried to kill someone, and that's why he's chayav misa, even if he didn't, unless he does teshuva, even if the person didn't pan out, but he's not chayav misa in this court because the person didn't actually die. But as far as his decision goes, he's actually required to pass away. Why? Because he forfeited his right to live, because he did that. He made that choice, and that's as far as we can go. We don't have any bechira past our choice and our first action. If Hashem wanted that, so nice to have 4-color markers. That's very unusual. Don't think this happens every day. Okay, if Hashem wants it to pan out all the way, that was Hashem's will to not block it, but it is still very much B who's receiving from Hashem, and it's B's responsibility to turn back to Hashem and say, something here happened because you want me to learn from it. What can I learn from it? What's going on? You might remember Rabbi Kagan's broken window story. I told Rabbi Kagan years ago that I've been using this story. He told me no one's going to trust him near windows. So you can make your own conclusions if you'd like. But in any case, one time Rabbi Kagan was at his Rebbe's house and before he was married. It would never happen once he married Mrs. Kagan. And he was fooling around with his friends and he was negligent, leaned back to catch his fall and broke his Rebbe's huge picture window in the front of the living room. And his Rebbe came over to him and said, I have to figure out why my window was broken, and you have to figure out why you are the one to break it. Again, I am the victim, so I'm B. I have to figure out why my window was broken. You have to figure out why you were the one to break it. So, if I'm going to have a difficulty in my life, doesn't only refer to broken windows. It means anybody who blocks you on the bus and now you miss your bus stop. Your bus stop. It refers to somebody who stole from you, right? You're the victim of the stealing. They missed out on din, right? But you're up to shalom, right? It is going to always refer to any pain, any comment, any difficulty that's going to come your way. In the civil world, you have reparations that somebody has to pay in order to be able to get their kapara, right? But that doesn't absolve you from realizing as B that this is between you and Hashem. This has nothing to do with anyone else. If you want 100 Jewish sources for this, come back to Shalom Alpha, I'll do it again. But it's basically everywhere. I mean, you could start from David HaMelech and what's his name who cursed him? What? No, not Shaul, but that also came up with Shaul. I want to say Gehazi, but I don't know why that's something that's not the right name. It's something with a gimel. I literally forgot it. That's embarrassing. Okay. And he said that this is not from him. Yosef said it's not the brothers who said. Domi? No. That's a different story. And what? Shimi ben Gera. Thank you. Shimi ben Gera. Shimi ben Gera cursed out David, and Shimi ben Gera ends up getting killed because he cursed out a king, which was Chayav Misa, but David did not want to deal with it on his own. He said, I'd rather be and deal with it between me and Hashem. Yosef's brothers, whatever. We have a million examples of this. Moshe called Dasan Aviram Rasha, Lama Takereecha. Why are you a Rasha if you didn't actually do it? Because you made the decision and you did your first action, which is to raise your hand, and it's concerned as if you didn't. We have so many examples of this in Torah, where this is clearly the way that people are held accountable for things, is if you And by the way, that's why it works for teshuvah, we said, because teshuvah is regret and first action to change, right? So you're undoing the spiritual damage that you have done, which was the action and the decision. However, if it actually pans out or it doesn't pan out, is Ratzon Hashem. Which means that if you are B and someone is hurting you, and they're hurting you regularly, you might need to sit down with them and say, why are you choosing things that are not productive in a relationship? But in terms of the actual hurt, and therefore forgiveness, it's between you and Hashem. Schnelly.
Wouldn't you go crazy?
Do you still go by Schnelly?
Clearly she does.
What's your last name?
Now it's Coleman.
Sweetie, what are you calling now? Her last name was Schnell, and so they were always called her Schnelly. Okay.
Wouldn't you go crazy if you would have to sit down and think every single time something bad would happen to you?
The opposite. You would be much less, because you ever see crazy people who are angry? You're much crazier when you're angry. You're much calmer when you're happy. When you're much happier when you're calm.
I know, but if you're trying to sit and figure out why something happened that was frustrating...
The Gemara says, if something difficult happens to you, a person who goes through a tzara, any tzara, large or small, you're supposed to yefashvesh masa, figure out what's going on between you and Hashem. If you can't figure it out, if you're a man, the Gemara says, if you can't figure it out, you put it on Bittul Torah. Chances are you were Mevatel Torah one time. Women are free on that one.
Ladies?
And so for women, we call it Hashem gave me something and I'm going to be makabelet for my day. For some reason. It's some kind of either kapara for my previous Gilgal or some kind of nudge forward to get closer to Hashem. Yeah?
This may be too general a question. Is it better to put someone to base them or to like...
Mevater over it.
To be mevater?
That's an excellent question. We call it din and lifnei mishuras hadin. That's the expression. When someone overrides pain that was hurt to them and damages that are owed to them, it's called lifnei mishuras hadin, above and beyond the call of duty of justice, right? And the reason is because it overrides. It's above din. You are 100%. Din is emes, right? So you're allowed to go to court and receive your damages. Lifnei mishuras hadin is considered a very high quality. It is considered a high quality, but someone needs to be honest with themselves and know that they're actually there, not just being holier than thou, or really a big tzaddik, and in their heart staying resentful. Lifnei mishuras hadin, if you're going to be mevater on that money that's coming back to you, or damages, whatever it might be, it has to also be in your heart. Okay. Nice. Okay. 3 things. If we work on all of them, it brings us to closeness with Hashem. Let's like boil this down. I just want to know, does anyone know what this class is titled? Amazing. No, not you.
That's why I came.
I had a whole debate with Lily. You can't even look it up. You even changed my title. The funny part is that Devorah keeps telling me I need the title. I'm like, no one reads the title. It doesn't matter. And I have this Kabbalah from Rav Pinkus Zatzal who used to stand in front of everybody and they would introduce him and say he's going to speak about whatever, and he could. So, I'd like to change the topic. And then he'd begin on whatever he wanted to talk about, right? So actually the title is not relevant, but it was just a funny debate about does anyone actually ever read the title, and I told her you could literally write whatever you want, it makes no difference. Say something about emunah, say something about relationships, say something about trust, you're fine. It's gonna all, if we're Jewish, it's gonna all come down to that anyway. I actually call it trusting the relationship, but Lily changed it to something else, which is...
Hi, I read it.
You read it?
Yeah, of course.
We didn't remember it.
I did.
So you can't check. You can't use it as checks and balances. Oh yeah. Oh nice. Okay. Trust between what? What was it? What? Building trust with Hashem and others. So we actually want to get to that point. So you were right. You do want to build trust with Hashem and others. I want to start with others before we get to Hashem. It's much easier to see it with others than it is with Hashem, even though we're quite used to the Hashem trust lingo. Racheli.
Do you mind just summarizing the shalom point again?
The A to B chart?
No.
That is the A to B chart. Okay? Okay. Meaning, I guess the bottom line is once you are in B mindset and you're in the A to B chart, so then you don't have to fight with people because you know that they're not hurting you. It's Hashem who's sending something to you. That's the bottom line. Thank you. Okay. Fine. I want to talk about trust in a few different categories. I think that it's something that we don't discuss often enough, and so I want to just bring it up. Number 1 is trusting people. Okay? Trusting people. I know this sounds funny because I just said trusting people, but I want to write to you a pasuk that we hear from Bilam's donkey. Most people in your life are not a donkey. If you think they are, you should work on that relationship. But there's a pasuk that talks about Bilam's donkey, and it goes like this. Halo asoncha asher rachavta alai me'odcha ad hayom hazeh. Now, the Torah doesn't put question marks, so I'm just going to put that question mark there so you know that that's the tone, but remember the Torah doesn't actually have punctuation like that. Ha-hasken hiskanti la'asos lecha ko. Bilam's donkey squishes him into the wall and refuses to carry on. We all know that Bilam's donkey saw a malach standing in front of it and was waving its sword. We all know, if you know Pirkei Avos, that the mouth of the donkey which spoke was created during Bein Hashmashos. This was a divergence from normal. If you think animals are talking to you, you should check it out. In any case, right? This is a divergence from something that was normal. But what did the donkey say? Something fascinating. Halo asoncha asher rachavta alai me'odcha hayom hazeh me'odcha ad hayom hazeh. Aren't I your donkey? Asoncha is your donkey that you rode on from way back when until this day? Isn't there a context here? Ha-hasken hiskanti la'asos lecha ko. Have I ever been accustomed to doing this to you? Have I ever done this before? Trust me. Look at the context of our relationship. I've never squished you against the wall before. I know how to ride. I know you. You've ridden on me all these years. Why would you hit me? Says Bilam hit his donkey, right? Why would you hit me? You should have concluded, based on our context of the history of our relationship, that I'm not doing this by mistake. There must be something you can't see. If you can't see it, it must be that it's still there anyway. You have to trust that there's some reason I'm doing this that you can't fathom. Why? Because of the context of our relationship. We've never done this before. Look at our past. Look at our history. I've never done this to you before. Why would you expect that I suddenly changed my behavior? It must be that there's something here that you don't see. That's a fundamental lesson in relationships. If somebody hurts you, and they don't generally hurt you, it must be something you are missing. Trust the context. Trust the context. If you were in my Shalom Bayis classes, so then you know, I had this experience with my husband's little embarrassing. I have no idea where this is going to go, this recording, so whatever. But what? It's already on there. In any case, the context of a relationship. One time, my husband came home very late. We were supposed to be going out that night. It was probably an anniversary or something exciting like that, and he was waiting for him, and he didn't come home. Now, in your mind, you could either start being worried, which is usually the first thing. My husband tends to pass out randomly, so of course that's like the go-to that I assume. Although in my almost 17 years of marriage, my husband has passed out 4 or 5 times. In my opinion, that's called regularly. And so therefore, it must be that anytime I hear a bang or he's missing for another 1 more minute, he must have passed out somewhere, which I'm sure he could have stopped and tied his shoe, which also happens regularly in our marriage, presumably, but I don't usually get involved in that. In any case, he came home. He saw I was really upset. In that moment, in that lapsed moment, if you're married then you'll know this, that in that lapsed moment is where your thoughts start rushing and you get reinforced about how upset you are and all the justifications about how bad your husband is and how good you are and how you never would do this to him, and he knows that you're waiting and he knows you hate when he's leaving you and he knows you get worried that he passed out. So if you call him and he doesn't pick up the phone, and he calls him and then he silences you, which is way worse, right? Then you're really upset, because first of all, now he's alive, right? So now he's really in trouble, okay? And now he's just silencing you because now you can kill him. Exactly, right? And then you're really annoyed. Anyway, he came home, he apologized for being late, whatever it was, and he said something to me that changed my marriage. He said, "Could you do me a favor? Do I generally try and hurt you? No. Do I generally try and help you? Yeah. Do I generally try and look out for your good? Yeah. Do I generally try and make you happy? Yeah. So could you trust the context of our relationship? Whatever happened, I'll tell you in a minute what happened. But whatever happened, before you get there, can you trust the context of the relationship? That's literally what this donkey is saying. Trust the context of the relationship. Do you generally try and hurt me? No. Do you generally try and make me happy? Yes. So then chances are you didn't wake up this morning and say, how can I hurt my wife? You probably didn't, because that's just not the context. Of course, his answer was something that I got really embarrassed about, which was he came out of shul, he was rushing home because he knew that I don't like to be kept waiting on an important evening. And an old man came over to him and started talking to him about how much he missed his wife who passed away. And my husband was trying as hard as he can to figure out, how do you tell a man who lost his wife, excuse me, my wife is waiting for me at home. And the man just talked about how he's missing his wife and he feels so lonely. And then I'm calling my husband and he's buzzing his pocket, and he just couldn't say, my wife is calling. His wife will never call. He just couldn't do it. So he trusted me. He trusted me. He trusted that I would trust the context and be okay with it. And I messed it. I messed it up. I should have been able to trust that context. Right? We are supposed to do this with people in our lives. We're supposed to trust the context of the relationship. There are times when, yes, you will be hurt by people, and it seems like there's no way for you to understand why. And you're certain you have all the answers. Bilam's donkey says you can't see certain things. It's not in your vantage point. You don't have that vision. You're not wearing those glasses. You just can't see it. Trust the context of the relationship. There's a famous story, I think it's from Rav Orlowick, who says that there was a boy who there was a certain Rebbe who was always very prompt, and he cared very much about being in school on time. And one day his wife got hit by a car, whatever it was. I don't know, it was this crazy story. And he ran to the hospital, whatever it was, and he actually came back for learning. She was in surgery. I don't know what it was. It was a crazy, crazy story. He came back to teach, and he was 5 minutes late. And he came into the classroom, and this boy runs over to him, and he goes like this to him. Being so emotionally overwhelmed with everything that was going on, and so proud of himself that he made it so much, almost on time, even though to have a little chutzpah kid come over to you and say, it was too much for me. He hit him. It's okay. It was in a world that people hit students. It wasn't abusive. It's okay. Right? And the father called the Rebbe that night and he said, you missed the context. My son loves you. He wanted to show you that he had a new watch. He was waiting all day, all morning to show you. He couldn't wait. You ran in the door and the first thing he could do was show you his watch. You know that you were late. So you took that as criticism. But not everybody's criticizing you just because you take your comments as criticism. The Torah says, call it posel b'muma posel. If you're seeing something negative in him, it's usually because there's something in you that needs to be worked out. Right? Look at it in context. The father was saying to the Rebbe, I know you're going through a lot, but if you would have realized the context and realized that this is a child who loves you, he would never have done that. Trust that. Trust it. Take a step back and say, maybe they wouldn't have done that. This is what it means when we say, have done is kol ha'adam l'kafsos. Kol ha'adam, a lot of Mefarshim talk about the word ha'adam, judge the whole man favorably, and it means judge the whole scene of the whole person favorably. You are probably missing part of it. It should say, having done is kol adam l'kafsos. In fact, most people who quote it miss that hey, right? But the word is actually ha'adam. Judge the whole person in context. That is part of our job. Even if you have no way of knowing how to judge somebody favorably, and you might say, well, it's ridiculous to come up with some convoluted method to figure out why they would have actually been right. Why can't they just be wrong? Let them just be wrong for once, right? Let me be right. So first of all, you should know that the reason why Hashem gave us imagination is for this mitzvah. Hashem gave us imagination not for you to sit and dream, or Nudge your children who are dreaming while they're putting on their sock for 45 minutes, right? That's not what imagination is for. Imagination is for Damakafsos. Come up with a convoluted way, and we know this from the Gemara about Rabbi Akiva, right? Come up with a convoluted way. Don't think I learned Gemara, by the way. I don't learn the Gemara. I just quoted a whole bunch of Gemara, so I don't want you to get the wrong idea, right? Come up with a convoluted, imaginary, fantastical way that's more fantastical than reality, right? It might actually be truer than fiction without you realizing it, right? You're supposed to do that because there's a context. People don't generally try and hurt people on purpose. That is a very important statement. People don't wake up in the morning and say, how many people can I hurt today? Which means that if you're sitting in a class and your phone rings, right? We always talk about respect and judging people favorably, and then a teacher's talking and somebody's phone rings, and you're like, okay, fine, forgivable. They silence it, and then 2 minutes later the phone rings, and 2 minutes later the phone rings, the same person over and over again, and then they pick up and they start whispering. If you're in an Israeli class, this happens all the time, right? And they start whispering on the phone, you're like, hello, some respect, some basic respect. And everybody suddenly gets annoyed, like, wait, weren't we just talking about respect? Aren't you supposed to be working on respect? Why is she picking up her phone? There must be some reason. You don't know it. It might not be that her husband's in labor. It might not be that there's an emergency. It might actually just be that she's forgetful. So people can't be forgetful. No one's out there to hurt you. They're not out there to be annoying. Your standard of respect has to match everybody else's. I was once on this applies not only for people in your life, but for Klal Yisrael as a whole. Damakafsos is a huge midah. And it applies to all people in Klal Yisrael. I was once on a bus on the way home from the Kotel, and it was crazy packed. And I was with somebody who was working on her way towards becoming closer to. She was from, but she had some inner stuff she needed to work through still, unlike me. And she was like, all these people are so frum, they all just dive into Hashem, and now they all just step on everybody on their way out, like as if I finished my spiritual thing for the day, so now I'm going to step on all of you. So I said to her, well, they might actually have to work on derech eretz and maybe personal space, social cues, appropriate behavior. You need to work on judging people. Everyone has something to work on. Why are you judging them? Maybe they never learned that you're supposed to leave a little space in between people. You ever saw that? There's like certain cultures that do that, right? I teach swimming, and I taught somebody who was a little special needs, and it was right after COVID. And I decided that I try and add in a lot of other things into swimming besides just swimming. And every time I would teach her, I'm going to use Alisa for a second. Every time I would teach her, she would I'd like personal space, even in the pool. So I said to her, "Bona se 2 meter." What's 2 meter? Right? During COVID, you have to keep 6 feet, right? 2 meters. I was like, let me show you what 2 meter is. Hold your arms out. You hold your arms out. Ze 2 meter. We'll talk like this. And anytime she came over to that, 2 meter. Right? I felt like it was important to teach her there's some social cues, but she didn't know. So what if she was one of those people on the bus? Your 2 meter is now her 2 meter? Because you decided? But her judging people favorably is not your judging people favorably. No, you're fine. It doesn't work that way. In Judaism, you're here to work on yourself. Right? You don't have to fix the world's social cue issues. Right? You need to work on your own midos. Why are we working on all this? Besides for having a peaceful, loving peaceful, loving existence and making society work and the olam is kayam, that's not the goal. That's like, there's like car trips to get somewhere, and then there's road trips to just hang out in the car. Whoever thought of road trips with the family is like a really bad idea. But car trips to get somewhere means that you guys have to make it workable so that you can exist in the 4 doors of the car till you get to your destination. The car experience is not the destination, right? Living in a world that works is not the destination. It's bringing you to Hashem. There's a concept of trusting in Hashem. Where does it come in? Where does trusting in Hashem come in? So we know this. That's why I said we use these words so quickly, but we forget what it looks like. Hashem has our good out, which is better than other people, right? Most people don't do that, right? Hashem loves us. his purview is far greater than ours, and his vantage point is much more respectable than ours, right? And that means that he can see into the distance and into the past, and he takes everything into account. And we can't always see that. Do we trust the context? Do we trust the context of that relationship? Hashem, I'm going through a really hard time. Why are you not answering my tefillos? Again, if I'm just paying you to get out my thing I wanted in the cash machine, so then the answer would be because you don't like me, because you're ignoring me, or because the cash machine is broken, which means God's broken, right? But if the reason for me to get close, the reason why I'm in this world is to get close to Hashem, so then there must be something here I can't see. It's my job to trust that. We always say this, but Rabbi Tatz always says, it's not the mushal of, this world is a mushal for Hashem. It's not that Hashem's lingo is a mushal for us. Which means that if it says, and this is the example he gives, is always. Always means I always repeat it. Doesn't mean he always gives it. I don't know how many times he gave it, I heard it once. Right? The example I always give that he said is, it's not that when the pasuk says Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim with yad chazaka v'zorah with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, that he's saying it because the imagery helps us understand what that would have looked like. The opposite. The only reason why you have a hand and an arm is so you could understand that pasuk. So that's why you have a hand and an arm. The only reason why you have a father is so you could understand what a father's supposed to be. The only reason why you have a child is so that you understand what a child's supposed to be in terms of our relationship with Hashem. The only reason why you have friends is so you can learn what it's like to have Hashem who is Yedidi, Ani Lidodi V'Dodi Li, right? It's the only reason why we have these people. All of this is supposed to bring us to our relationship with Hashem. You're working on Delma Kafskos with other people? Do it with Hashem. You're working on acceptance of other people? Do it with Hashem. You're working on din, on emes, on shalom. Be honest, be real, be just, be straight, be not argumentative. It's all so that you can relate to Hashem properly. So that your experience with Him is positive and it's b'shalom. We build this skill. We're going to finish in 5 minutes. We build this skill in a few different places. In tefillah, we build this with gratitude. Gratitude is the way that we, or not only in tefillah, is recognizing all the other parts of the context of our relationship. If our relationship with Hashem is only about did I daven or did I not daven, am I allowed to do this on Shabbos or not, then my relationship with Hashem is very, very limited, and therefore I have very little to fall back on. I have nothing in the bank account to fall back on when I'm tight. Right? But if I am constantly putting in a recognition of what Hashem gives me, then the gratitude that I have allows for a far greater bank account. And therefore I have a greater context with which to judge a situation that comes up. It's difficult. You know what's interesting? If you think about all the things you've ever davened for, and you tally them up, almost all of them have been answered. Most people don't realize that. Because they think of when their grandmother was sick, and they think of when they wanted to win the lottery, and they think of those 2 times, and their grandmother died, and they didn't win the lottery, so Hashem never answers my tefillos. Right? But think of all the times you davened. How many things you've davened for? Hashem almost always gives them. Almost always. Now you might say, well, that's because I'm down for a parking spot. Okay. He gave it. He's smushing himself into a tiny matchbox and giving a parking spot. He's listening. Yes, it might be easier for Hashem to give you a parking spot than it is to find your shidduch when you're an older single. It might be harder. Right? It might be easier for Hashem. I don't mean easier and harder for Hashem. They're all the same. It means in terms of the context of who you are in your relationship and what you need to be able to become in order to be able to receive that level of shefa from Hashem. Right? But if you put everything in context, you have a much greater awareness of how much Hashem is, how much He loves you, how much He generally gives you, how much He generally provides for you. Right? Gratitude is one. And tefillah, quoting Hashem's history, right? Look at what Bilam's donkey did. Quote the history of Hashem like, who was it, Shana who said, Hazanas Olam? Right? Constantly quoting that Hashem provides, Hashem gives, Hashem loves, Hashem blesses, right? You might struggle financially. When did Hashem make you starve? Did you go through a week of no food? Because you struggled financially? Never. Well, you wouldn't be alive to tell the tale, so I'm talking to a very good success rate, right? But people don't just wither away because they didn't have lunch. Even though you might be struggling to pay rent, even though you might be struggling to try and figure out how you're going to pay for college, right? There's a tremendous context here. Hashem has been with us since the beginning of time. And He cares about Klal Yisrael. He wants you, and He cares about you. And He's been nudging Klal Yisrael in a certain direction just to get to you. It's our job to look back and say, Hashem, I'm ready for you. I'm ready to accept you. I'm ready to keep this in the context of the relationship. I see the history. I see the historical, the national context, and my personal context because I'm so grateful. I just want to end off with two quick stories. One of them is just trusting in the context of people and what advantage you have. If I didn't sell it to you yet, right? So then at least you should know that there's a perk. Okay? I when I was teaching swimming, so I was teaching one of somebody that I know. And we were standing in we were by the deep water, and somebody dives into the deep water with flip-flops on. That's gross. Why is it more gross than if you dive in with feet? It's just gross. I don't know. It just is. Everyone knows that. It's also gross. Like, don't come into the pool with shoes on. Right? And she, swims away. Now, Nomi, my friend, was facing me, and the person dove behind her, so she didn't see it. And I was like, oh, that's gross. Somebody just dove in with flip-flops on. So she goes, she probably forgot to take them off, and carries on. I'm sitting there grumbling about how it's gross and inconsiderate and no about hygiene. I already had 5 or 6 sentences about how awful this person must be about their flip-flops, and Nomi brushed it off. She probably forgot to take them off. Okay, fine. Then this person gets out at the shallow, walks around the whole pool with her flip-flops, and dives in again with her flip-flops. You can't swim with flip-flops without noticing, okay? It's like, it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, there she is again. And she goes, oh, probably forgot again. And it struck me that while I am the realistic one, she's not here. Because now I'm grumbling and I'm assuming that the world is out to get me and ruining my pool water, while she just believes in people's forgetfulness and moves on. They just move on. And that's a very important lesson, that even if you're right, it might not help you. Give a little. First of all, we see from the donkey you're not right. Probably you're not right. Right? But even if you are right, give a little. Realize it's not worth it to you. I just want to end off with one more thought. I was talking to my kids one time. I came home from work one day, and I just wanted to pick the brain of my little kids. I don't exactly remember how old Yaeli was. Right now she's 12. But I don't remember how old she was. I think she was about 4 when the story happened. 4 or 5. And I said to her, someone told me that she doesn't care about Hashem and she thinks Hashem doesn't care about her. I just wanted to see what she would say. I'm reading this off because I quoted it word for word. Okay? Yeli said to me, tell her that Hashem does for us all these nisim. Context. Right? So I said to her, so what should I say about her not caring about Hashem? Because that only works one way, right? So she said, tell her she can't hurt Hashem so it doesn't help her. Which means that this is not for your benefit. There's no perk in having a beef with Hashem. It doesn't bring you closer. It's not worth it. First of all, it's probably not true. So let's just start with that, right? Because He does care about you and He does have things out for your benefit. But if you decide you cling to the realist, pessimist behavior, right, of hating Hashem, it doesn't help you in life. I once read a quote, a woman whose children became frum and she was anti-religious and she came for the wedding and decided to start with the rabbi. And she starts yelling and screaming about how awful God is. The rabbi said to her, if you want to live in a godless world, that's the world you'll live in. God exists. We all know that. We all live our lives that way, right? But He's bigger than you, even if He doesn't. You don't say He exists, He still exists, right? But if you choose not to see Him, that's the world you'll choose. I give you all a bracha that you should be able to take the context both of people in your lives, people in broader, less in your lives, right? And then copy, paste it, superimpose it onto a relationship with Hashem. Realize that people are not usually out to get you, just like Hashem is also not out to get you. And certainly, the people who have a history with you and have a context with you of love and care, trust the context of the relationship. You don't have to know everything. Sometimes you don't get to see it. But you want to trust in the context of the relationship and absolutely and most certainly realize that if Hashem, our goal, right? If Hashem is the one in charge and He's the one who loves you and He cares about you, trust in the context of that relationship. He wants you to trust and you'll be in a much better place. Doing so, I give you a bracha that you should all successfully succeed in doing that and stay in touch with me. It feels amazing to see you all. You're welcome. Thank you.